on the ground. I'm not coming down. I want to go higher, higher, higher than that.
Welcome back to the Business is Human podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession, and we're here to bring you episodes that blend meaningful work with profitable success. Here to steward what I call the age of humanity. I believe if we transform the way we work, we can transform the way that we live. As always, my friendly request, if you like what you hear, hit subscribe so you don't miss any episode, and leave a review to tell the other humans that they might like it too. Always looking to help you and connect with others. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Welcome back to the show for our final in the Stand Tall in Your Story series, the final talk in the series. And that is Amanda Smith with Share Your Genius, who produces this podcast. So shout out to the team. This talk has so much meaning for me personally that I'm going to share with you. We hear Amanda's story, which is about our obsession with how something ends and what it could be in our lives to celebrate that each passing day is a new beginning and a fresh start and a new opportunity. Let's hear Amanda's story, and then I'll be back to tell you a little bit about my story, and you don't want to miss it.
All my life, I've been surrounded by stories. It started when I was little. My mom, she would sit in the hallway reading books to us aloud as kids. We were snuggled in our beds as we were drooling over the descriptions of food and feasts described in Redwall books. Prayed that one day we too might receive our very own letters from Hogwarts, or find out that maybe, just maybe, one of our parents was in fact a Greek god from mythology, and we were tasked with a world-saving quest. History lessons involved historical fiction novels, and every Friday we would pick a meal to make from that country and time period. Worlds, cultures, stories. I couldn't get enough. And I'm sure it was this foundational love of story that led me to have very, very vivid dreams. And I'll tell you, there was never one like the one I had when I was 10 years old. At that time, I had my best friend over for a sleepover, and we claimed the basement, much to the chagrin of my 6 other siblings, and pulled out the pull-out couch, threw up a pop-up tent, and settled in for a night of shenanigans. Now, I will say there's not much about that night that I do remember, but I can tell you that that night, my life changed forever. Because in the middle of the night, I woke up with the bones of a world and characters and stories that just had to be written down. And so I scrambled through the house at 3 a.m. trying to find a pen and a notebook. And by the time my friend woke up, I had the first 3 chapters written. Over the next several years, that book became who I was. It was my personality, as they say. And those first 10 pages ended up being my college entrance essay into a creative writing program. And I went on to study story in all of its forms and fashions. And so I immersed myself in other people's stories, even after college, while conveniently avoiding my own. I can tell you, after spending the last several months with all of these amazing women, I wasn't the only one who wasn't paying enough attention to her own story. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? We all know that. And so I was convinced that I was always at the beginning, trying to figure out what the heck my ending was. That's how stories are written, right? In order to begin, you have to know the ending. I stand here before you today and laugh at that thought because it's very logical. It's very planned. It's very businesslike. What's the end goal? What's the outcome we want to achieve? As somebody who's helping build a business, those questions cross my mind daily, hourly, in fact. And while there are a lot of good things that I can take from my work life and apply to my home life, I started to treat my entire life like it was a Gantt chart and an Asana board. Resonate with anybody? Yeah. And so I had to stop and ask myself, are we really writing our own story? Or are we just making the next best decisions as we live out our lives? And if that's the case, let's imagine for a few seconds longer. What if we had the ability to make our stories whatever we wanted them to be? Novel concept, right? Maybe a little more adventurous, a little more romantic, maybe even a little more slow. I wanted that. And so that got me thinking, well, then maybe the ending isn't really all that important after all. In fact, maybe every sentence is a new beginning. And isn't that what keeps life interesting and exciting? I mean, think about it. That way we're always creating, we're always evolving. I don't know about you, but I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, a year ago, yesterday. Heck, I'm standing on this stage in front of you guys. I wouldn't have been doing that yesterday, right? I have had so many experiences that have brought me to where I am, who have made me who I have become. And the journey that I'm on has so many more experiences for me to live to make me who I'll be tomorrow. And so now I am learning still to enjoy every new beginning and not be so focused on that ending. Because the reality is, the time between right now and that ending, it's my life. And so when the people who have been the characters in my story gather around to tell it, I'd like it to be a memorable one.
Now, what's interesting about Amanda's story, well, there's lots of things. As soon as I knew what she was going to talk about, I had this sense that that was going to be the finale talk for the season, for season 7, because it was just a beautiful way to end the show and say, we're always beginning. We always have a fresh start. And that's such a hopeful and true look at our lives. I think especially as business people, we're just obsessed with looking for the problems and fixing the problems. And we can tell you what the problems are and what the challenges are, but we don't have a very good version of great expectation to be able to say, what are you excited about? What if it goes better than you can ask, think, or imagine? Amanda's story reminds us that we are always writing a new story if we choose to. And so I had this just knowing back in January that that was going to be the final talk of the show. Now, what most people didn't know is all throughout season 7 of the Rise and Thrive experience, I was having conversations with God about, is this the final one? Because it was sevens. It was 7 women spending 7 months coaching with me and then getting on a stage telling a 7-minute talk. And 7 biblically is the number of completion, perfection, when everything just completes. And the number 8 then is about new beginnings. I had this inkling so much that it might be the last one, that when Angie Woods, who you heard her talk a few weeks ago, when she was talking to me about being a part of the Rise and Thrive experience, she said, I'm going to be the first one to sign up for season 8. I'm just not ready this year. And I said, casually, Holy Spirit guided over coffee, what if this is the last one? Because she was really set on the number 8 and new beginnings. And I said, well, 2026, 6 plus 2 is 8. Maybe this is it. And she ran with that and she jumped in. So we actually had 8 women this year for the first time instead of 7. And so after the season ended, the event was in March. I went into prayerful discussion just before my birthday in April, because I always look at my birthday as kind of the start of my new year. And I had fasted for 3 days and then sat down with the Lord and said, I want to spend the day with you. I spent 6 hours praying and asking the Lord for guidance. I want to spend the day with you, and I want you to show me what doesn't go into this next season, this next year of my life, and what does. Like, let's break off anything that doesn't belong. And what do I need to know to start afresh this year? And so I had several questions that I took to him and got really good answers. And on this one in particular, I said, Lord, are we doing this next year or not? And then I opened my Bible to a never random page. And there on the page, it said, on the 7th year, we stop working the land and all the debts will be canceled. And I said, well, there's the answer. And sometimes it just be like that. Again, I had been fasting and preparing myself to hear from the Lord because I want him to be the CEO of my life and my business. And so what I thought was a great ending to season 7 was prophetically the ending to all of Stand Tall in Your Stories. It was the final talk. And nothing could have made it more perfect as the final talk, because I just finished writing another book called The Counterfeit Life that I'm editing right now. And I'm excited to continue the work I've been doing with leaders of small and mid-sized businesses, trades companies, to help make what is largely invisible governing our lives and decisions, our nervous system and the subconscious world, as well as the spiritual world. Combining those two things and bringing it into business is what I'm super excited about. I don't know exactly what's next, other than I've already been doing that kind of coaching and that kind of speaking. In fact, I have a talk coming up in a couple of weeks called Why Can't We All Just Get Along? That I'm excited to give to more companies. So if that's something you're interested in talking to me about, let's do it. And I've got capacity to take on some new coaching clients. So if that's you, let's chat about it. So as I wrap up this series, the Stand Tall in Your Story podcast series for season 7, it's also a wrap on this chapter of my story. And I am completely at peace and excited about what's next. It's like Seinfeld. Sometimes we just want to go out on top. The event had grown 600%. We had 400 people there this year. I'm really proud of that. And I'm really proud of the work that I got to do with these women. And from their words, based on them hearing the announcement, life-changing work. And I can't wait to continue to do life-changing work on a broader scale inside businesses. So that's all for now, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. And until next time, make it a great day. Love you, mean it.
I'm not coming down. I never left it on the ground. I'm not coming down.
Thanks for being here. You can follow us on Instagram, Business is Human, or TikTok, Rebecca Fleetwood Hession. It's a great way to share some of the clips with your colleagues and friends. All right, make it a great day. Love you, mean it.